Hi, this is Peter Schiff. This is Monday, March 9th, 2009, and this is another issue of my video blog. Anyway, I spent this morning watching some of Warren Buffett's interview on CNBC. Now, it's interesting. Warren Buffett wrote an article in Fortune. I think it came out in 2003. And if you Google Warren Buffett Squanderville, you'll find this article. It's an excellent article. I actually referenced it in Crash Proof. Anyway, in that article, Warren Buffett actually described himself as a gloom and doomer. And he said that the U.S. economy was headed for a terrible crash because we were living beyond our means, because we were consuming so much, because we were borrowing so much. And he actually referred to America as Squanderville, and basically our currency, or our IOUs that we were issuing the world, as squander bucks. And he also warned that there were other doom and gloomers that had been predicting a collapse based on America living beyond its means and based on the accumulation of trade deficits for many, many years, and that thus far the collapse had eluded the economy. And so he thought perhaps his will just be another voice added to the naysayers who have been wrong. Well, obviously at this point, Warren Buffett was right. The economic collapse that he was warning about in Fortune magazine back in 2003 has actually occurred. So now why is Warren Buffett championing what Barack Obama is doing? Why is he supporting the bailouts and the stimuluses? Why does he want Squanderville to squander even more money? You know, back in 2002, he was actually recommending some painful government policies to try to slow down our spending and our consumption and try to bring about an end to these imbalances before they brought about the crisis that he was predicting. Well, now we're having a crisis. How can he have these solutions? I mean, what has changed? Is it possible that he really is just a good investor and a lousy economist? I don't think so. I think the Warren Buffett that wrote that piece has a pretty good understanding of economics. The question is, why is he not telling the truth now? You know, why is he lending his voice to the chorus of people who are cheering for more stimulus and more bailouts when he knows better? Why isn't he calling for the tough medicine he called for back then? You know, back then there was a crisis, and he was warning. Now that there obviously is a crisis, this is a better opportunity for the old Warren Buffett to come out and give some of that tough medicine prescription. Now it seems that he feels he has to be a cheerleader. You know, and I can certainly use some help. I like somebody of Warren's stature talking about the problems, talking about what's wrong with our economy, instead of just mindlessly cheerleading us as we squander even more of our wealth. You know, along those lines, I was watching on television last week when McTeer was on CNBC, and he was talking about the fact that Americans are not spending any more money, that they're rebuilding their savings, and so now we need the government to step in and spend. And he was talking about the paradox of thrift, that by saving money, we're actually undermining the economy. No, we're not. There is no paradox of thrift. The only paradox is how few people understand the virtues of savings and the virtues of thrift. What happens is, as we stop spending money, obviously the economy contracts, the phony economy contracts, but it's the savings that are laying the foundation for future prosperity. There's nothing paradoxical about it. But when the government comes in and tries to undo the beneficial effects of the public saving more money, they undermine what's going on. I mean, basically, it's like if somebody is trying to kick their heroin habit, it doesn't help for somebody to sneak in and inject them with another fix so they don't have to go through withdrawal. That's what McTeer was advocating. We need the virtues of thrift to restore prosperity to our economy, and we don't want the government interfering. You know, it's interesting. Actually, somebody had pointed out to me in an email that, in a way, the uptick in the savings rate is a little misleading, because a lot of the extra savings are coming from the fact that so many Americans are no longer making their mortgage payments or no longer paying on their credit cards or their car loans. Instead, they're putting the money in the bank, and so it appears that savings are going up. But actually, what's happening is more and more people are choosing not to pay their debts. You know, also on television, I happened to notice, I was watching Bill Maher the other day, and he was discussing the fact that nobody on CNBC had predicted any of the economic crisis, had warned about the housing bubble, and he had Aaron Burnett on, and he was, questioning Aaron Burnett, why was there no one on CNBC? Well, he knows for a fact that there were people on CNBC because he's seen my videos. I know he saw the debate I did with Art Laffer because he referenced it when Art Laffer came on his show. He referenced the things that I said. I don't know if he saw the whole Peter Schiff was right video. And there's actually another one. Somebody came out with a Peter Schiff was right CNBC edition. I don't know if he saw that one. That certainly highlighted a number of my CNBC appearances where I warned repeatedly about what was going to happen. Why won't Bill Maher have me on his show? When we called up, they actually told us, their producers actually told us that Bill Maher doesn't have economists on his show and that he doesn't want to have any economic debate on his show, which was news to me because there seems to be economic debate and economists on the show all the time. Maybe it's that they want to criticize CNBC for not pointing out the problems, so they don't want to show examples where people on CNBC did point out the problems. Or maybe the people at Bill Maher don't like my politics. They don't like the fact that I'm critical of the stimuluses, I'm critical of the bailouts, I don't like the direction that Obama is taking us, and so maybe the producers don't want to give my point of view any credibility. And by certainly showing to their viewers that I was able to predict the crisis, their viewers might want to put some stock or some credibility into what I'm saying now. So maybe they don't want to see that. Also another thing I wanted to mention is there's a call now for global economic stimulus. I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal referencing that Barack Obama wants the rest of the world to stimulate. He's saying that America has done its part, and so everybody else needs to go out and stimulate. Well, maybe Barack Obama doesn't understand this, but everybody can't ride in the wagon. Somebody needs to be pushing the wagon. So the whole world can't borrow and spend money. Somebody's got to lend the money and save the money that we're borrowing and spending. Barack Obama doesn't understand that the only reason we can stimulate our economy is because we've got somebody to lend us the money. But if the rest of the world tries to emulate us, well, it's impossible. We all can't borrow. Who are you going to borrow from? I mean, the only way we can all do this is if we just go on a giant global printing spree, which unfortunately is probably going to happen. But the reality is, Barack Obama, the U.S. continues to try to create the impression that the world is in so much worse shape than we are, and that people should be glad to be in America because every place else is worse. And it's not worse every place else. I mean, one of the reasons that we have been spared some of the pain that ultimately we're going to have to deal with is because the world is still loaning us money. We're still able to squander our money. We're still able to issue more of our squander bucks. The world is accumulating these squander bucks, and it's subsidizing our economy. So we've been spared the real pain, while the world is still burdened by having to support us. But you can start to see more and more pieces of news coming out that the decoupling that I've been talking about, that a lot of people now think has been discredited by recent events, is actually materializing beneath the surface. Look at a recent news story that came out about Mattel opening up a new store for Barbies. A new Barbie store sells Barbie dolls and accessories. It's the first store of its kind, and it's opened in Shanghai. They didn't open it any place in the United States. And I read the article, and they interviewed some of these Mattel executives and the reasons for why they opened in Shanghai. And they basically said that their U.S. sales were plunging, that as American consumers were cutting back and spending less, that Chinese consumers were spending more. And so they wanted to go where the consumers were. They wanted to go where the spending was growing, not where the spending was shrinking. And so they chose to open this store in Shanghai. And look, there are more and more examples. If you read in the papers and you read the economic news coming out of Asia, you'll find more and more examples of this type of thing going on. Although I don't think it gets a lot of press in the mainstream media because they still want to act as if we're all in this together, that everybody is falling apart, and that it's better here than any place else. That's not the key at all. And of course, the only way the world can really stimulate the economy, stimulate their economies, is to stop subsidizing ours, to stop propping our economy up. And eventually, if Barack Obama goes around the world long enough demanding that other people stimulate their economies, maybe somebody will finally listen to him. The problem is Barack Obama isn't going to like it when it actually happens, and neither will probably most Americans.